of the work that we did without them. So I would first like to acknowledge Amelia Byers, Kennedy Newson, Daphne Weekly, Annalisa Sewell, Wanda, and Billy Moore for all of their hard work and dedication. Um, this group of people have made sure that they were available for every volunteering excursion that we've had, every event that we've run. And so far, all of them have been successful. They are knowledgeable, they are dedicated, and I thought that we should acknowledge them and say thank you to all of their hard work.
Well, I think everyone up here agrees that they're essential to your efforts, your very successful efforts to straighten up the animal shelter down there. We thank you, sir.
Thank
And
you.
all the volunteers and all your staff. Does anyone care to make a comment?
I believe
Alderman Dupree?
I believe they deserve an applause for that.
Thank you, sir.
Actually, sir,
Anyone else?
Mayor,
Alderman Young?
Mr. Glenn, on that night, on that day that you were doing the food truck festival, wasn't you having another event as well?
Yes, sir. We were also partnering with a rescue group at the Sidecar event, well, the Sidecar restaurant that was right off the expressway. So we were having two events simultaneously.
How many dogs did y'all adopt out that day?
I believe it was a total of 8 dogs and 3 cats. Yeah, and then there was interest in about 4 more who left within the next 48 hours as a result of being exposed during the event.
So you're telling me 12 dogs?
A total of 12 animals were adopted as a result of those events.
That's an awesome job.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you're doing down there.
Thank you, sir.
Alderman Dupree?
my family got a cat.
Anyone else? Mr. Glenn, every one of us thank you. Thank you, sir. All right, moving on down. Number 5 is planning. Mr. Chad Barr.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Alderman. For that first case tonight, I'll have the Assistant Director, Andrew, present the case.
Thank you, sir. This is a public hearing, which I now declare open. Thank you, sir.
All right, the case.
Thank you.
The case we have tonight is number 2023-14, and this is a request for a conditional use at 4323 Goodman Road West by Dale and Judy Wilson, landowner, and Mark Campbell, representative of landowner with Carter Engineering, for a proposed restaurant with a drive-through land use on land consisting of plus or minus 3.786 acres. The subject parcel is zone PUD or planned unit development. Next slide, please. All right, so this is just showing the current parcel lines and surroundings. This is just south of Goodman Road, right to the west of Fountain Lane. Next slide, please. And this is showing the zoning that I just talked about. On the north side, it's all C4, and on the south side, it's all PUD, including the subject land. Next slide, please. And so this is just a little bit of the history behind the land uses and the intended direction of this area. So both parcels are PUD, and these fall within the Fairfield Meadow PUD, which was created when the properties were actually outside of Horn Lake's boundaries and thus under DeSoto County jurisdiction. And that led to the language of the plat referring to only the DeSoto County's zoning regulations. The plat does not give specific details on the uses allowed to fill in those properties other than the commercial properties needing to follow C1 zoning. which at the time referred to DeSoto County C1 zoning, but planning staff has, we're going to equate that to Horn Lakes C1 zoning. Next slide, please. And so this is just showing the site plan on top of the current aerial view. Just to get you an idea of the way it's going to be laid out, the entrances, the detention ponds, the parking, and all of that relative to the surrounding area. Next slide, please. Okay, and then so this is just some of the regulations that explain why all this is required. So I'm just going to go through this real quick. Subject to the provisions of this section, the governing authority may by resolution grant a conditional use permit for the uses enumerated as conditional uses in any zone district as herein qualified, and shall impose appropriate conditions and safeguards, including a specified period of time for the use to protect the comprehensive plan and conserve and protect property and property values in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. And so, based on that, the next one says that an application for a conditional use permit for use as authorized by this ordinance shall be made to the Planning Commission, and this has already been done. Public hearing shall be held after giving at least 15 days notice of the hearing, and an official paper specifying the time and place for said hearing. All of this has already been done. Next slide, please. And so what the Planning Commission had to hear was through basically this A through F, and these are all slightly different points that the board will be discussing tonight. But what the Planning Commission looked at was they basically had to make sure that this didn't substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion, that it didn't substantially increase fire hazards, that it didn't adversely affect the character of the neighborhood, and that it didn't adversely affect the general welfare of the city, and that it didn't overtax public utilities or community facilities, and that it was not in conflict with the comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. And so this is where it comes to the board. Upon receipt of written findings concerning the proposed conditional use from the Planning Commission, the governing authority shall make a determination as to whether or not a conditional use permit should be issued. However, the governing authority shall not grant a conditional use permit unless satisfactory provisions have been made concerning the following. Next slide. And this is what the board will be discussing tonight. For this particular land use, which is the restaurant with the drive-through, the off-street parking and loading areas, the refuse and service areas, utilities with reference to locations, availability, and compatibility, screening and buffering with reference to type, dimensions, and character, required yards and other open space, and general compatibility with adjacent properties and other property in the zone district, and any other provisions deemed applicable by the governing authority. Next slide, please. And this is just going through all the other things required. Every applicant for a conditional use permit shall submit a site plan in accordance with Article 5, Section P. Chick-fil-A has submitted a site plan, and we are reviewing it, and that will be reviewed soon with the Planning Commission. And then number 5, any proposed conditional use shall otherwise comply with all the regulations set forth in this ordinance for the zone district in which such use is located. And number 6, a time limit. This is what the Planning Commission has had to look through, and we have the applicant's response to all of these questions, and as well as the staff analysis. So I'm just going to go through and just read what the Planning Commission had to go through because this is primarily what the applicant has responded to. So, will this conditional use substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion? The applicant said that the proposed Chick-fil-A is designed to minimize traffic hazards or congestion to the greatest extent possible. The proposed drive-through meal delivery is greater than 500 feet from the nearest property boundary, and 2 points of ingress/egress are proposed as part of the proposed site development. And we completely agreed with that. Based on the operations of other Chick-fil-A locations in the region, there is concern about placing this Chick-fil-A next to a road with fast traffic and congestion, as Chick-fil-A is notorious for attracting long lines of drive-through users. However, this appears to be mitigated by wrapping the queuing vehicles in a design that is least likely to have them backed up to Goodman Road. And y'all can see that if you look at the site plan on that earlier slide. Chick-fil-A absolutely did come up with a great site plan that has the traffic wrapping around in this pattern that fits the most cars possible to get them off of Goodman Road. Yep, that's it up there. And they'll come down south off of Goodman Road, and there's no anticipated lines of cars that will be backed up onto Goodman Road based on what they've drawn. Next slide, please. And so, will this conditional use substantially increase fire hazards? The applicant response was the proposed Chick-fil-A will include the construction of a new fire hydrant and a sprinkler system for the building to reduce fire hazards. Planning staff did not see this as contributing to any extra fire hazards other than what any other fast food with the drive-through is going to bring. Next slide, please. And will this conditional use adversely affect the character of the neighborhood? The proposed Chick-fil-A is similar to, they're as similar as restaurants with drive-through services along this corridor. We agree with the applicant. It's not going to adversely change what's already all around it. It's all fast food with drive-throughs in that area. So this will actually just fit. It'll blend right in with everything else. Next slide, please. And will this conditional use adversely affect the general welfare of the city? The applicant response was Chick-fil-A provides itself in the service to the community and positively impacting the character and welfare of the area, and looks forward to greater service opportunities in the city of Horn Lake. Staff analysis was that there is no reason to believe this will adversely affect the general welfare of the city. And then next slide, please. Will this overtax public utilities or community facilities? The applicant response was that the public utilities such as water and sewer are existing along Goodman Road, and no negative impact is expected on the community facilities. Planning staff agreed with that statement. There's currently no evidence to suggest that this will overtax public utilities or community facilities. Next slide, please. And will this be in conflict with the comprehensive plan? So their response was that the comprehensive plan promotes economic development and a healthy mix of land use types that are responsive to the market. The proposed Chick-fil-A seeks to align with the goals by providing opportunities for connectivity. And based on the planning department's review of this question, the current comprehensive plan's proposed land use map technically does show medium density residential zoning in that exact location, but commercial zoning directly adjacent. And however, if you look at the all the uses around it, this does fall very close to the desired outcome of the land uses as proposed in the comprehensive plan. So this will not be in conflict with the current comprehensive plan. And so that was the slides that the Planning Commission did have to review. But if you go back to the slides where it had the A through, yep, right there. These are the specific questions that the board has to address tonight, in a very similar fashion to what the Planning Commission addressed. And so, and again, this is off-street parking and loading areas, refuse and service areas, utilities with reference to locations, availability, and compatibility, screening and buffering with reference to type, dimensions, and character, required yards and other open space, general compatibility with adjacent properties and other property in the zone district, and any other provisions deemed applicable by the governing authority. And so, in your planning packets, the planning staff did go through and give an analysis on these specific questions. The applicant has not submitted questions to these specific questions, but the applicant provided answers to the questions to the Planning Commission. So that's why I included their responses to what the Planning Commission had to look at. And so there is some crossover here, but overall, we do not see any issues with them answering this A through G. And so that would conclude the presentation.
Thank you very much for an excellent presentation, Mr. Andrew. And that last series of questions, you've provided the board and myself and Mr. Campbell with the analysis by the Planning Commission.
And the planning staff for A through G that the board has to look at, and it is in the planning packet.
Yeah, it's right here.
Yeah.
It's right here. And I appreciate you providing those. That gave the board members time to look it over and make up their mind and see if they had any questions about it. It looks like the Planning Commission did an excellent job in going over this, and the Planning Department too. Thank you. And of course, the developers, we certainly hope they will be here, that just a really, really excellent layout. Couldn't get over the number of parking places. I hope they stay full too. I hope they stay full. Did you have anything else, Mr. Andrew, before we open up the public hearing here?
If just one quick thing, if there is any discussion about the about traffic and about the actual site plan itself, we are still reviewing potentially minor changes to the actual layout of the entrance and where the queue line starts. But overall, tonight's discussion is just for the conditional use. And so if there is any issues discussed about the traffic and the site plan, we will be reviewing that, and we will make any changes that need to be fixed on that. But that is all.
So what the applicants are requesting from the board is just approval or denial of a conditional use.
That is correct.
Does anybody on the board have any comments? Alderman Bostic.
Yeah, the vote on the planning commission was 6-0. You didn't,
Yes, it was all in favor.
that's what I thought. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Anybody else? All right. Alderman Bledsoe. I'm sorry. I apologize, sir.
I'm just tickled pink that we're gonna have a Chick-fil-A. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address Mr. Francis J. Miller?
30 seconds.
Your 3 minutes is running. You better get on up there. Oh, Mr. Francis, thank you for getting Mr. Worley to donate all the flowers to the park, and thank the park director and his staff for planting them.
They were all red Republican flowers, too, I had to tell you. Okay, now that that's over with. Okay, yes, I agree. Chick-fil-A, and I was at the Planning Commission meeting. It went well, but there was one little issue. I wanted to bring it up. It isn't an issue. They took care of it, but I wanted to remind everybody there was one issue, but the Planning Commission took care of it with no argument. Where the way they needed to set that property up, right in the middle where all those subdivisions come to like a V. They need it to go within closer than that 50 feet, right at the V, for the drive-through canopy that's considered part of the building. I brought up the fact that the Planning Commission and Alderman let the people on Highway 51, when they put that building up for that fire company, a beautiful building, and they moved closer to the subdivision than they were permitted, and it caused no problem. There were trees there, and it was a building, and they did it, no problem. These people needed to move that canopy right where the V there closer, and nobody argued that. So I wanted to bring that little technicality up. I was surprised that Mr. Barr caved in on that. But anyway, yeah, that was the only thing. And I do want Chick-fil-A there.
Thank you, Mr. Francis. Anyone have any questions or comments to Mr. Miller? Is there anyone else to speak? Yes, sir. If you give your name and address to the board, we'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. My name is Mark Campbell. I'm with Carter Engineering. My address is 1010 Commerce Drive, Bogart, Georgia. So I'm happy to be here tonight. Appreciate the work of planning staff and also of the Planning Commission last month to approve this conditional use permit. I just came here tonight from Georgia to answer any questions that you might have about this project. We're excited about the things that are going on, and understand we'll probably see you again maybe in a month or two for a site plan approval, hopefully, as things continue to move forward. I understand tonight is just a conditional use permit, but again, I'm the civil engineer, so I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, we certainly welcome you to Mississippi, and we don't run off now to see if any of the board members have something. And we certainly thank you and Chick-fil-A and Mr. Austin and Mr. Wilson for working so hard to get Horn Lake this fine business. Does anyone on the board have any questions or comments for Mr. Mark? Alderman Klein.
Just a question, I think it was brought to our attention that this is supposed to be one of the largest Chick-fil-A's.
So, not to get too deep into the history, it's not necessarily the footprint is the larger footprint. There really probably wouldn't be any Chick-fil-A's that have a square footage larger, but I think the comment on larger was really about the size of the site. 6 months or so ago, this site was a lot smaller than what you see on the screen. It was smaller by approximately an acre or so because it didn't go all the way over to the signal. But through working on this project and being able to serve the community of Horn Lake, it actually expanded to the full development you see there now.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
Yeah.
Alderman Bledsoe. Thank you.
Thank you. I have never seen a Chick-fil-A that hadn't been full. So I hope we do the parking spaces. I hope we fill them up, because I've been to a many Chick-fil-A, and you always have to wait in line. So, and I'm happy. So thank y'all.
It's ironic you're here tonight because the Chamber of Commerce's monthly business get-together is at the Chick-fil-A tomorrow morning. You ought to come. Anybody else? Alderman Dupree.
If everything goes well, when do you think you will be starting on it?
So generally when we schedule projects out, one of the things we look at is the calendar year, not just the calendar year when construction starts, but the calendar year when a Chick-fil-A would open. And so we consider this a 2024 project. So not a 2023. There's not any way that we can get all the approvals needed to get permits and start construction and be open this year. It's just not physically possible, but we do consider this a 2024 project.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, I had one question.
Mr. Campbell.
Mark, you heard the assistant planner mention it a couple of times during his presentation, the subject of a time limit. What the board has normally done in these type cases is limit the conditional use permit for so long as the property is being operated, in this case being a Chick-fil-A. Do you see any problem with the board doing that?
I wasn't familiar exactly with how you did that, right? Because I may not still be here in 50 years, but I got a little girl who just turned 1, so she might live in Horn Lake and eat at this Chick-fil-A. But I think that condition certainly makes a lot of sense.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Anyone else? That being the case, thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you.
That being the case, I declare this public hearing now closed. Do we have a motion?
Mayor,
Alderman Young.
I'll make the motion that we approve the conditional use permit as recited by the Planning Commission and the Planning Department.
We have a motion by Alderman Young. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Bledsoe. Is there any discussion?
Mayor,
Alderman Geis.
do we need to add in the limit of the conditional use to when it changes from a Chick-fil-A?
Yeah, I'll be sure it's in the minutes. Okay.
Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree. Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe. Alderman Klein.
Aye. Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you. Welcome to Mississippi. Welcome to Horn Lake, and we're certainly looking forward to the business. That'll make you feel better too, Mr. Austin. You had to worry about this a long time.
Mayor,
Tell Mr. Dale hello, please. Thank you.
Mr. McDonald, are you a Georgia fan? Yes, sir, that's where I went to school. Well, we had one of our great athletes play at Georgia, N'Kobe Dean. I just want to let you know. Yeah, he did y'all well.
All right, letter B, case number 2023-23AI. Mr. Barr.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so to go on to item B here, which is case number 2023AI. It's an alderman initiative for potential text amendment to the city's zoning ordinance and the city code, initiated both back at the alderman meeting of July the 18th of this year. One part of it had to do with residential accessory uses such as wading pools and trampolines, and then clarifying the city ordinance regarding the printing on sales or merchandise bags on fireworks sales. So now when I put these together, I was thinking when the board made the motion back on the 18th that they were wanting review by the Planning Commission and consideration by the Planning Commission on both items. I don't know if that was actually accurate or not, because normally we wouldn't process an amendment to the city code. It would just be to the zoning ordinance. So I may defer to a legal counsel on that, whether to consider that at all or not. But having said that, let's move on to the next slide. So at least regarding the possible zoning amendment, it's come up before in previous meetings. It's sometimes why the Planning Commission gets involved with text amendments to the zoning ordinance. But there's two spots in the city code, so I've just put that in this particular presentation just to kind of clarify that. Billy had answered that in a previous meeting, but this actually is the wording from the city code. One is from Article 2. Which deals about the Planning Commission, more specifically Section 24-19, and down under 5, and then lowercase b and c. It says here 5, these are duties and responsibilities of a Planning Commission. It says review, consider, study, and make recommendations to the mayor and board of aldermen on the following items. And so I specifically fonted items B and C. It says proposed zoning ordinances, and then also C, proposed amendments to the above. So that's where part of that authority comes from for the Planning Commission to make a recommendation or consider text amendments to the zoning ordinance. And the other one would be on the next slide, and that would be under Article 11, letter O, where it talks about the Planning Commission creation and duties. Excuse me. And so what it does is it's basically creating a planning commission, and then it lays out the various powers and duties of the planning commission. So that would be under number 2, lowercase a, and then number 3 under that, where it says proposed amendments to the text of this ordinance. So that's where that comes from. So next slide. So to take up the one part of the 2 items. We've got here's the definition of accessory building and accessory uses, and this is per Article 2, Item B, definitions of the city's zoning ordinance. And so I've just put the 2 definitions of accessory building and accessory use there. I'll read them, because it's, like I've said before, lots of times in the zoning, lots of things boil down to the definition of things. That's, we were looking at that yesterday in the department on something else. But in this case, it's important to recognize the differentiation, or differentiate between principal land uses and accessory land uses. So in this case, we're talking about accessory land uses. So here, number one, accessory building, a subordinate building which is incidental to and customary in connection with the principal building or use and located on the same lot. And then number two, an accessory use, a subordinate use which is incidental to and customary in connection with the principal building or use and located on the same lot, including but not limited to landscaping features, walls, fences, light fixtures, steps, paving, sidewalks, shutters, awnings, solar panels, satellite dishes, and signs. So next slide. So we go here from Article 5, which Article 5 in the zoning ordinance is called General Provisions and Supplemental Zoning District Regulations, and then more specifically Item D. So Item D within that article talks about accessory buildings or structures and has uses in parentheses and then swimming pools. And from what we remembered from the when the text was case was initiated back in July, there wanted to be clarification within the zoning ordinances about pools and trampolines. So what's proposed here in the bold font print, purple colored print, is the new wording. And so right now you can see what's there now. It talks about accessory buildings, uses. It says here under item 1A, accessory buildings or uses are prohibited in the front yard and side yard of any zone district except as provided herein, meaning somewhere else within the zoning ordinance. And so what's added would be swimming pools, including wading pools, and trampolines shall all constitute accessory uses. So what's proposed there is try to succinctly and as clearly as possible to put that wording in there to clarify without a doubt to anybody reading it, including staff, of what that means. So now, when that was taken up by the Planning Commission back on September the 25th, they did do some discussion on that. They did make a recommendation for approval of that particular portion of the whole case. Basically what they did is they took the case and they just divided it in two. They had the fireworks wording issue, and then they had the accessory use issue. So they kind of took it in two different motions. So on this particular motion, it was a motion to recommend approval of the proposed wording there that we've just seen, but it failed to pass. It was a 2 to 3 to 1 motion. We had two that was recommending in favor of the request, or that portion of the request, 3 against it, and 1 abstained. So that was on that. So now the rest is just to the city code. So I guess depending on what legal counsel may say, I don't know if there's any need for consideration by the Planning Commission. I always feel that there's value in the Planning Commission when they handle community ideas. So, but since it's a city code, it's not a zoning text amendment, maybe they shouldn't have considered it at all. So I guess I'll just stop at that moment unless you have any questions or comments.
Well, I agree with what y'all did here about breaking it into two parts, because to me, it's two different issues. And after discussions with Mr. Campbell, the first part pertaining to the swimming pools and wading pools and trampolines, it should be a public hearing. The second part should not be a public hearing. So if anybody, without an objection from the board, will proceed to the, did you want to answer his question?
Well, on the fireworks bags, that is not something that the Planning Commission is required to hear under ordinance, so we could have bypassed that, but certainly no problem with them hearing it. That's something, I've been working on that as well, and I've actually got Alderman Bostic's fireworks bags about a month ago, so I would ask the board not to even consider that case tonight and let me, because I actually do agree with planning staff that we need to have something more than just the word professionally printed in the ordinance to give some details as to what is actually required. So I propose to have something more than that for you to consider at the next board meeting. So I would suggest that you just not consider that part of the case tonight, but just take up the part about trampolines and swimming pools.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. All right, I now declare the public hearing open. Does anyone have any comments, yea or nay, on the proposed changes to make swimming pools, wading pools, and trampolines accessories? Mr. Francis, please.
My name is Francis J. Miller, voting resident of Ward 5 of Horn Lake, and I want to be as serious as I can here. Okay. The city of Horn Lake is full of people that do not have what I call the better things in life that some people have. There are lots of homes that have either a trampoline or a little makeshift swimming pool in the front or something else. At the planning commission meeting, there was one planning commissioner that really got excited about this, basically saying, why don't we leave our citizens live in their houses? Why are we harassing them? Okay, I agree with him. But then someone else brought up safety and people getting hurt. My question is, how many people have gotten hurt in these front yard swimming pools, 1 foot high? How many drowned? How many went to the hospital? These trampolines, how many came on a trampoline at midnight? A neighbor got hurt. Possibly the fire department can tell us how many ambulances did they run taking people out of these items in the front yard where people got hurt when nobody was home or whatever else. And I go back to, I care about the poor. They have nothing else. They can't go to the swimming pool. They can't do anything. They don't have any money. And then it came up, what about the code enforcement? Who enforces this? Let's let them clean our city up with the crime, criminals, drugs, prostitutes, and that. Don't worry about these kids in their little, and nobody goes to the hospital, gets hurt. Why go after the poor? Why put Mr. Barr in charge of trying to spend money to correct that? But I would leave the fire department and ambulance to tell me, how many trips did you take anybody to the hospital that got hurt on any of this junk in the front yard? And if there is more than one a month, okay, you could change my mind. If not, leave them alone.
Mr. Francis, the proposed amendment is not to prohibit those, it's just say they've got to be in the backyard. Nobody's saying take those items away from families.
I don't care if they're in the front yard, side yard, backyard. I don't care where they're at. They're on their property.
So you don't
should have
care
the
if it's in the
right
back?
to have it on their property.
So you don't care what part of the yard it's in, as long as they got the right to have them?
They have the right to have them.
Thank you,
Correct.
sir. Anybody have any questions or comments for Mr. Francis?
I do.
Alderman Dupree.
Mr. Francis, I don't know if you know about homeowners insurance. If one kid, just one, out of the thousands, gets hurt, it's on the homeowner to pay for that kid, no matter what. Why should we put the burden on that homeowner, even though they want the trampoline or pool out front? One person gets hurt, it's a lawsuit, period. Don't even give them the option to get hurt in the first place. So that's why we want to put it in the backyard.
If they put it on their property, they buy the insurance and they pay the lawsuit, period.
So you think the homeowner should be able to pay for that child to get hurt?
No, if the homeowner makes the decision to put the risk there, then that homeowner takes the risk of paying for it if they made the wrong decision. And if it's a lawsuit, they pay the lawsuit.
That's not fair.
Then we disagree.
That's right. If you want to have this ugly swimming pool out front, trampoline out front, then go up to Memphis.
All right, let's keep it civil. Anyone else have any comments? Alderman Bostic.
One of the biggest reasons that this issue ever got brought up is for this board to be proactive instead of reactive. Whether we have a history of somebody getting hurt, I have no idea. That wasn't the initiative that I had in mind. My initiative was just like Alderman Dupree said, it only takes one to get injured. And if we can prevent that by putting it in the backyard, we're being proactive and not reactive after somebody gets hurt and then go, oh, well, we should have done that. So it was for a safety issue, mainly just to make sure that the kids that are walking around are not tempted to go jump in that pool when people aren't home, jump on that trampoline. If it's in the backyard, they got to go through a gate, jump a fence. That's on them. But if it's right there accessible and tempted for them to do so, that was the initiative that I was trying to do for safety for the children. So.
Anyone else? Anyone in the audience? That being the case, this public hearing is now closed. We have a motion, please.
Mayor,
Alderman Bostic.
I'd like to make a motion to approve to add the wading pools and trampolines as accessory to the ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion for text amendments by Alderman Bostic. We have a second by Alderman Dupree. Is there any discussion?
Mayor,
Alderman Geis.
as a matter of safety on this, does this ordinance require, if you have those items, that you have a fenced-in yard, or can kids just walk through a open yard and jump in one in the back? You know,
I don't believe it requires a fence, does it?
I suspect the swimming pool does, the others probably do not.
okay.
You gotta have signage too.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Barr.
Yes, thank you. On that question, yeah, the larger pools, or you'd maybe see more like adults in or whatever, I think it's in the building code, it's specified. I think if it's 2 feet of water or something like that, then they would have a special fence around that specifically, like for either above ground pool or below ground pool, and then a self-locking gate and some different things that are found in the building code. The one thing I didn't put in here was like safety, like extra fencing for like the wading pools or stuff like that, because I thought if there was going to be anything specific to that, it probably should be actually in the building code, so not to mix the codes, if you will, that might confuse people. So.
Thank you, sir. Did that answer your question, Alderman?
Yes, sir. I was just thinking, to me, there's a difference between a swimming pool and a little wading pool. To me, having to put a fence up for a $3 pool from Dollar General.
I think, and Mr. Billy may know, and I know Mr. Highsaw would know this because he works for a pool company. I believe the breaking point of that is if it has a filtration system.
Okay, I was just curious.
Because it's not portable at that time, it's stationary. So
Yes, sir.
I think that's when the fence comes into play.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree. Alderman Young.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. All right, the next one is also a public hearing, which is now open. These are properties that our code enforcement in the planning department has tried to get brought into compliance, has been unsuccessful. This is a motion where the city can go in there and try to straighten it out. It's a public hearing. Does anybody have anything to say, yea or nay, on any of the properties? Anybody on the board? In that case, public hearing is now closed. We have a motion, please.
Mayor.
Alderman Bostic.
Yeah, make a motion to approve the resolution for cleaning the private property of the addresses that are listed.
We have a motion by Alderman Bostic. Do we have a second?
Second.
Alderman Young made the second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree. Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. We have no one down for citizens' remarks. Mr. Campbell left. We're down to number 8, Mayor Alderman correspondence. I want to thank everybody for all the work they've done to make this a better city. Go look at your park. Your main road through there is now paved. We've got all those flowers, thanks to Mr. Francis J. Miller for getting them donated, and the Parks Department under Mr. Drew Coleman for planting them. Don't forget October the 28th is when the Spooktacular is at the park. Please come out. That's usually a very, very nice event. It's usually over 5,000 people that come out, and it's really cute to see the little kids all in their costumes. All right. That concludes my remarks. Alderman Young, you have anything, sir?
I do, sir. I have a couple of items. Back there on the little table or whatever is our Veterans Day event that Miss AJ has absolutely just worked herself. It's 11/8 at 8:30 a.m. It will be over at Landers Center as we normally have it. And I'm very proud to say that Congressman Major General Trent Kelly will be the guest speaker. This will be an event you won't want to miss. If you're a veteran, please come out. It's open to the public. But if you didn't get any of these, please get some. They're up there. If you need some more, see AJ. We can print some more of these. But it's certainly something we owe the veterans for what we live in today. The second thing is we had another meeting today with Shelter Planners of America on some issues and some things we didn't get to the other day. And I just wanted to give everybody an update on how deep they're in our pockets so far. As of today, before today's meeting, it was $151,079 that we have been billed for, and we don't even have a workable plan. So I would like to see us can these Shelter Planners of America and go with somebody else. I think we're better off, but we'll have that on the next agenda. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. And getting back to Alderman Young's remark about the breakfast, if you're a veteran or you are a member of a family of a veterans, if your veteran has passed, please come. It's usually a really nice event. Horn Lake Choir sings. And as Alderman Young said, we're really tremendously honored that Congressman Kelly will be our speaker because he was invited to events all the way through his district, from the Mississippi River to the Alabama line. And he chose to honor us and our veterans by coming to this event. Alderman Dupree, do you have something, sir? Yes. Alderman Johnson? Alderman Bostic? Alderman Geis? Alderman Bledsoe? Alderman Klein?
No, sir.
All right, as we go through the department heads, if anyone on the board has any questions or comments for the department heads, please speak up. Chief, do you have anything tonight for the board?
No, sir, Mayor.
All right. Mr. Bostic, you have anything for, Mr. Box, you have anything for the board?
No, sir, Mayor.
Anybody? Anybody? Chief Limble, you have anything for the board, sir?
No, sir, I don't.
Anybody? Mr. Coleman, you have anything for the board?
No, sir.
Alderman Young?
It's really not, but the lights that are out at the park up by the football field, those are beautiful. That was a great idea you did. If y'all haven't been out and driven through the park and seen what Mr. Coleman came up with about decorating for the holidays, that's an awesome event. That just brings us back to community, and I love seeing that kind of stuff, man. Kudos.
Yes, sir, thank you.
I haven't been through it at night. What?
Man, it's spooky. I don't know, if you go up there, they might get you.
I'll take my cross and go through. Anyone else? Mr. Malavasi, do you have anything for the board? Anyone have questions? Alderman Young?
Apparently it's my night in the barrel. One curb looks really good in Shadow Oaks, where I'm talking about, where they only got 4 more to go. We really need to get that handled. those people are about ready to string me up on a branch.
Yeah, we've kept him informed of that issue, and we did go by there and check that. And are you talking about the material that's behind the curb?
Behind the curb, yeah.
Replaced
It wouldn't, an old guy like me could probably have done it in the 3.5 months that they've been promising to do it, but we really need to get those done. If you could, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Alderman Dupree.
A while back, we spoke about the, Fleetwood and Gray Drive. That's where the drainage ditch, the drainage is higher than the corner where it comes down. And when it
Yes.
rains, that big old puddle sits there
Yes.
for days. Is there any plans to fix that?
Yes, sir. They're going to have to replace it. We'll pull it up and replace it so that it won't hold water there.
You know, time frame where they might start on that?
I don't. It's like I said, they've got a contract, time frame, working time frame, and I mean, as long as he gets it done within that time frame, there's not a whole lot we can do. We can't tell him you got to do this. But now cleanup's a different thing, like Mr. Alderman Young's talking about. But
All right, so, they're gonna do that on this project?
yes.
They're doing it in Twin Oaks?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Mr. Malavasi, I've had several calls, I know Alderman Bledsoe has, about that big hole on what, Winesap? Is that where it is? How are we coming on that? I don't know if that's for you or for Mr. Box.
Well, yeah, Mr. Box and I have been talking, and what we did is we pulled together some drawings, and got a cost estimate to do that, and I think Mr. Box has got those in hand, and we're supposed to maybe look at seeing about funding that. But yeah, we've gotten plans to do it, just need to get somebody on board, a contractor on board to do the work.
Thank you, sir. Alderman Bledsoe, do you have anything? Or did that answer your questions about it, or?
How quick? I'll get phone calls pretty regularly.
He wanted how quick, do you have a time?
Well, no, sir, until we get a contract on board, I don't know that, but, we've got to get, if the board says, we get funding to do, we got the funding to do that, then we can certainly get a contractor on board. It's probably going to be, I think, under the $50,000 limit. I think
How much,
it's
sir?
probably under $50,000, which I think is 75 now, and to get 2 proposals. So if that's the case, we could get 2 proposals and get a contractor on board probably within a couple of weeks. Now, one of my thoughts was that we're going to get two quotes, but the contractor that's on site, that will be on site real soon to start doing the Twin Lakes water line extension, he could probably get on that pretty quick too. So that would be a good option for him.
Alderman Bledsoe.
One thing, when it was put in, when it put in wrong, and that's why we're having to go back and redo this.
Yeah, it was, if you go back and you look at the way it was put in, there were probably before that house that was built there, when there was no house there, the drainage was right. They had a ditch there, probably, but when they built that house, I don't know when the house was built, it's probably done when it was county, but they built that house up and they didn't do anything with the drainage. They just built around the drainage. So we kind of inherited that problem.
That's like the one we had before. They had, in the lady's backyard, they had a pipe coming this way, one coming this way, and one coming this, and none of them was connected. And it washed her backyard away. You could put a school bus in it. So we run into things that we inherited.
What the alderman and the department head are referring to wasn't in the city limits at the time it was all built. Anyone else have any questions or comments for Mr. Vance? Thank you, Mr. Vance. Mr. Andrews, you have anything for the board?
I wanted to tell everyone that we have officially partnered with 2 additional clinics. We are now working with Snowden Grove, Oak Tree Animal Clinic, Horn Lake Animal Clinic, and State Line. We've also completed a partnership with Hollywood Feed. We're just closing that deal now where we will receive in-kind donations from them. We'll be able to have events with them as often as we like, and it comes with some discounts as well. So partnerships are what we are completing. We are on the onboarding stage of our Shelter Love program, which is technological, it's innovative, it's going to post our animals, more media coverage for them. It will make adoptions easier. People will be able to do it just by using their phone. So we're just moving into the future with a lot of our partnerships. We are also getting our microchips now. So we've got a lot of wonderful things that are happening right now. So just wanted to let everyone know about the Hollywood Feed, which is, we should all be excited about that. They are a monster company, and with their help and their aid, we'll be able to do a lot. We'll have free giveaways whenever we adopt out, just things like that.
That's remarkable. Thank you so much, Mr. Andrews. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Alderman Dupree.
Mr. Glenn, you need a big S right here. Superman. You did a great job, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman.
Anyone else? Yes. Alderman Bledsoe.
I want to thank you because ever since I've been a board member, even before, our animal shelter has been a headache. And it's nice to have smooth water for a change. So thank you.
Anyone else? How about the heat problem? Is it getting fixed?
Yes, sir. Jim jumped right on it. And actually, Steve also assisted by sending one of his guys over to look at it as well. And we're doing well. We're doing very well now. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, and thank you all, gentlemen. Mr. Barr, you have anything for the board?
I do, Mr. Mayor. Just one item to report that the rental housing quality coordinator, she's been able to go through finally the utility list and compare that against the list that we got from the county as far as properties, commercial properties, and we've identified about another 250 to 275 entities consisting of about 1,400 properties that still have not licensed with the city. And I think most of those letters will go out either today or tomorrow. There's still about 50 remaining that we're trying to figure out the address of who to send those letters to. And we've basically, these letters are a delinquent notice stating that we're going to give them through the close of business on Monday, November the 20th to get licensed into the city's RPLA, under the RPLA. So, and then after that, then we'll pursue legal courses of actions if they don't license up by then.
That's remarkable. Ms. Woods has done a great job on y'all's direction over there. She sits here all day long just plugging away. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. Barr? It sounds like we're finally getting some teeth. It took a long time to get that information together and to correlate it.
Yeah, it just took what we did.
People.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, what we did is we basically isolated her from the rest of the workings of the department so she could focus and concentrate on looking at those lists and going through there. Because basically it takes a lot of concentration to figure out what a person's looking at to make sure that what's been licensed and what hasn't been licensed and what's missing and all that sort of stuff. So,
Anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. Barr?
Mayor,
Alderman Young.
we're coming up on renewals too, right? I mean, we've been doing this for just about a year now. Does that look like it's gonna go off without a hitch, getting renewals and getting people to understand that they're due to get another business license and another fee? I mean, are we working on that aggressively as well?
Yes, very good question. Yeah, the next go-around for renewals will start in January, and I tried to make it clear in this letter to the people that they haven't licensed. This is for 2023, not for 2024. They're getting this letter, so then if because what we did originally is we grouped them into 4 groups, basically alphabetically. So if there's a group that if they're in letter B group, which would be the January group, if they haven't licensed up, they would be owing us the city for the year 2023, and then in January for 2024.
Anyone else? Mr. Andrew, do you have anything for the board? Anyone have questions of Mr. Andrew? Mr. Jim, you have anything for the board?
Well, I just will add a couple of things. Thank you to Chad and his staff and Miss Tammy. it is, that seemed like a smaller number entity, but the amount of properties that is about 1,400 properties that is not registered. So that's a lot of property, rental properties that hopefully we will be receiving the proper paperwork on. So that will be good when we get all of those in there. And also, thank you to Mr. Vince. Went over last week to his office, and we got the ball rolling on one of the 6 projects that the board has approved, and that's the Twin Lakes water filtration project. You know, we submitted the paperwork and hopefully are on our way to get funding, reimbursement on that, and get that process in full swing. So we submitted that this past Friday. And then the only other thing I have is I would like the board to keep in mind the library process for next board meeting. Apart from the contract that is ongoing, that we continually pay the utilities and the upkeep of the property, we still have the question of funding their operations. And they had submitted flat funding, which I think is $140,250.
It's a meal, is it correct? That was allocated in the budget, 1 meal?
Well, it is, but sorry, I think they did 124. I didn't look at that, but that is for their general operations.
All right. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Jim?
Mayor,
Alderman Bostic.
do we have our season's greeting banners that we're going to be switching out in our city?
We do. We still have those here. We were looking at doing that closer to November.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll keep that on the radar for Mr. Stephen, but yeah, we'll be switching those out and holding on to the other banners that'll remain up the rest of the season. So we've been looking at doing those November to February.
Are your lights on tonight in the park, Mr. Drew, that Alderman Young was talking about?
Are you talking about the?
Lights that Mr. Alderman Young was talking about, are they on tonight?
Yes, sir, yeah.
Okay, maybe we can ride by and see them if it's not real late. I haven't seen them. All right, Mr. Campbell, it's all yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one item on the agenda I need to discuss, but one other item that's not on the agenda that I needed to report on is at the last board meeting, as a part of the consent agenda, the board will recall approving the term sheet with Webster Bank for the first series of the bond issue, mainly to cover the cost of the renovation for City Hall. I did want to report that closed today. So that money is in your bank account, ready to be spent on this project. And like I said in the memo, we'll expect to do a second series for the animal shelter next year when we have those numbers firmed up. The item on the agenda, Mayor and Board, is regarding the proposed land swap with the recycling group on East Center Street. This came before us several years ago, and the board actually approved this in 2020. But I wanted to bring it back up. It never got finalized for whatever reason, but they're interested in getting it done now. And before I start the ball rolling and getting that done now, I at least wanted to run it past you, since Alderman Young, Dupree, and Klein weren't on the board at the time, and some time has passed. But they're wanting to expand their operation on East Center Street, and so what they want is about 1.3 acres from the northwest corner of the city shop property, in exchange for giving us 5.7 acres of their property that's south of and adjacent to the city shop property. And it's most. That's right. Yeah. Yes, sir. Right there on the right before you get to the shelter is their land. It's all wooded. Doesn't look like there's anything on it now. Mr. Box was not the director at the time this was originally approved, so I ran it past him. He said he didn't see any issue with it, so I just wanted to be sure no one had any objection to it now before I start the ball rolling again to get it finalized.
We don't need to approve it again.
No, sir, I'll rely on the approval from 2020, but I just thought it best to bring it back up since some time had passed.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Is that land, are you gonna be able to use that land? Cause I just wanna cut grass for nothing. Can you use that land?
There's nothing to cut.
Yeah,
Well, the land that they're giving us is all wooded land. It's not nothing to cut. It's just all woods.
That's all right, we can cut firewood. We can make room for buildings. I just wanna know if we cut the wood and get rid of it. can
It's
you
there for whatever we want to do with it in the future.
You might be able to use it.
Yeah, we might be able to use that in the future, for sure.
All right.
Anyone else?
that's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
We don't need a,
No, sir.
all right. Now, do we have a motion for closed determination?
Mayor,
Who?
Oh, guys.
Alderman Geis.
I make a motion to go into closed determination.
We have a motion by Alderman Geis. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Bledsoe. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young. Alderman Dupree. Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe. Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Ladies and gentlemen, if you will excuse us a moment, please.
Mayor, I make a motion to come out of closed determination.
We have a motion by Alderman Geis. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Young. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Jim.
Alderman Klein. Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic. Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree. Alderman Young.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
Mayor,
Alderman Geis.
I make a motion, go into executive session for item A, discussions regarding personnel matters in the planning department.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Alderman Geis, second by Alderman Bledsoe. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree. Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Klein.
Aye. Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll have to ask y'all to step outside. Those chairs were comfortable, they were cold. Ah, no heat back there. Do we have a motion to come out of executive session?
Mayor, I make a motion to come out of executive session.
We have a motion by Alderman Geis. Do we have a second? Second by Alderman Bledsoe. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe. Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree. Alderman Young.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor. Do we have any motions resulting from executive session?
Mayor,
Alderman Geis.
I move to deny the appeal by employee number 742 for the disciplinary action in board order number 10-08-23.
We have a motion by Alderman Geis. Do we have a second? Second by Alderman Bledsoe. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree. Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Nay.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe. Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 6 in favor, 1 opposed. There being no other business for this honorable board, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Campbell.
I had put a short memo in the meeting packet about possibly needing to recess this meeting to a day next week so that we can adopt the ordinance increasing the sanitation fee. That notice, we approved it at the last meeting, but it has to run in the paper for 3 consecutive weeks before you adopt the ordinance approving the sanitation fee increase, and that last publication will occur this coming Thursday. So we need to recess to a day next week just to adopt the ordinance increasing the sanitation fee so that it can go into effect with the November billing, which also coincides with the ADSI contract beginning. So,
Thank you, sir. You had it in there and I forgot. I thank you.
yeah, I expect it to be a really short meeting. So if somebody is, out of town or something and can just join us by phone, just for the vote on it, that would be helpful.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a motion to recess the meeting until October the 24th?
Monday.
This Tuesday, isn't it?
Mayor,
Alderman Geis.
make a motion to recess this meeting till October 24th.
We have a motion by Alderman Geis. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Young. Any discussion?
And Mr. Mayor, that'll be at 6 p.m.
6 p.m. Is that in your motion, Alderman?
Yes, sir.
Is that in your second, sir? All right. We have a motion and a second to recess this meeting until October the 24th at 6 p.m. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe. Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. We are recessed until October the 24th at 6 p.m. Thank you, Mr.